recently made a video in which I counted every single pin in my Disney pin collection, and when doing so, I specifically separated my authentic pins from my fantasy pins. And it turns out I've accumulated a pretty decent number of fantasy pins over time. If you're not familiar, fantasy pins are fan-made Disney pins. They have absolutely zero affiliation or association with Disney themselves. I'm gonna link up here to a video I did a while back talking all about fantasy pins. Fantasy pins are a whole other type of Disney pin rabbit hole you can fall into. They're great because there can be fantasy pins of essentially anything, but also most fantasy pins are technically illegal because they do use Disney copyrighted characters and artwork. There are, though, other fantasy pins, kind of more small shop-esque pins that don't infringe upon the actual Disney copyright. So there is a lot of gray area with fantasy pins, but I do really like fantasy pins. With this video today, I wanted to show my entire Disney fantasy pin collection broken down by the specific shop that each pins are from. As a disclaimer, just because I own a pin from a fantasy pin shop does not mean I endorse said shop. As I go through this video, I will kind of talk about that a little bit more. But I will include links in the description to all the shops that I mentioned and really like. Just know that a lot of fantasy pins are limited edition, and the ones you see in my collection might not still be sold from these shops. But hopefully this gives you a kind of good idea of what's out there. Hopefully I can introduce you to some of the fantasy pin makers that I really enjoy. And if you have fantasy pin makers that you really like that I haven't shown in this video, let me know so I can check them out. But let's get started looking through all of these fantasy pins. In this video, I'm roughly going to be going in order of the shops that I have the most pins from, and we're starting off with Enchanted Thoughts Club. Enchanted Thoughts Club is among my favorite fantasy pin shops. As you can see here, they do a lot of kind of mashup pins, Disney parks inspired pins. What's really nice about all these pins is that they're all very reasonably priced. They're around the cost of like a regular open edition from the Disney parks. All of the orders come with free shipping to them, and I've always been a really big fan of their super fun designs. So you can see I have some Coco inspired pins, some Star Wars Mandalorian, we have some like Disney Parks, Disney Walls pins, and I think I have at least one or two more pins on pre-order from them. Next we have Fantasy Pins by Madison, and what to say about this? Well, Madison personally owes me at least around $150 because I bought a number of pin pre-sales from her and she never made those pins. Unfortunately, I will probably never get my money back or ever see those pins because she collectively took tens of thousands of dollars in pin pre-sale money for pins that she never made or paid the factory for. So although it is incredibly disappointing what she's done, it's even worse for me to be out that much money. But as you can see, before she did produce a lot of nice pins. I do have quite a number that she did. I have quite a few pins in this side-by-side series with kind of the characters back to back with themselves. Some really neat Emperor's New Groove pins. I love this set here of Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. And then just a few other really neat pin designs. So this is definitely where fantasy pins can go bad and you can end up with not great experiences. We next have pins from Castle Babe Co. I think at one point Castle Babe Co. announced that they were kind of closing down their shop, but now it seems like they might be staying open. But they do some cute little simple fantasy pin designs. As you can see here, I have quite a number of this character inspired ice cream. I especially love this Emperor's New Groove and Moana since they have Hey Hey and Pua and Bucky the Squirrel on it. But this is another shop that does kind of more simple, less expensive fantasy pins. Then we have pins from Grape Soda Club. So Grape Soda Club does this series of like Polaroid style camera pins. I get a lot of questions where these pins are from, and the answer is Grape Soda Club. I have these kind of taped open, but they're designed to kind of move. I like them displayed with the image so that you can see them, so I have that little bit of tape so it's always propped open. They also have some really cool kind of more interactive pins. This one is a little spinner, and this Once Upon a Time is actually designed to be like a whiteboard inside. So it came with a marker that you can write on it. You can see I have some tape to kind of help hold it shut. They also do enamel charms for like necklaces and bracelets. They recently moved to the United States, so I don't think that they've had new pins available, but they always have really awesome products and designs. I then have some pins from Bakeshop. Most of these pins were very kindly sent to me by the shop. They do princess-inspired tiered wedding cake pins. I have these 3 on my boards in their respective collections, but they have tons of other princess designs available. These all I ran out of room to keep on my sweets and snacks board. In addition to princesses, they also have a number of other character-inspired tiered cakes. So these are really nice fantasy pins in the way that they're like fully Disney inspired, and they oftentimes have a lot of really fun details on them. Although I don't have too many pins from this shop, one of my favorite pin shops is Alicia's Wonderland. She makes pins in the style of the classic Disneyland D. The artwork on all of them is always so super pretty. There's so many nice details on them, and of course you gotta love the classic Disneyland D logo. I have a few pins from Be Kawaii Pins. This shop did change their name, so Be Kawaii is the new name, but I have these few pins of the Squirrel Scout series. So of course it's themed to Emperor's New Groove Squirrel Scouts. You have cute Nick Wilde dressed up as a Squirrel Scout, so I think these are a perfect little mashup. The next pin shop is Yesterdaisy Pins. So I have these 2 pins here from this shop. They're from this Glitter Bomb series. As you can see, they do have a lot of awesome glitter on them. They also have fun interactive elements like Hey Hey has a little coconut on his head that moves up and down. And then Sven has a little dangly. I just have these 2 pins from that Glitter Bomb series, but there's a lot of really awesome pins at Yesterdaisy Pins. We now have some pins by Disney Chris. These are 2 Emperor's New Groove fantasy pins, and these are definitely the thickest and heaviest, heftiest fantasy pins I own and have ever seen. These are the type of thickness like with some of the Artland pins I've shown. They're so insanely thick and hefty. I believe I got both of these through trade, so I have not purchased from this shop. These are definitely among the more expensive of fantasy pins, but obviously really high quality. The only thing I don't like as much is that Yzma skin tone in this one is like very much the wrong color, but it's still an awesome design. 2 more pins we have are by Toon Baboon Pins. So I have this really awesome Zootopia pin and then this bell with Mrs. Potts and Chip. I love how unique the artwork style is of this shop. That it's not just a direct replica of Disney characters, but they're all done in this very distinctive artwork style. And I think that makes these pins really special and unique. Then I have these pins by Osseo Pins. This is a little set of Nick and Judy pins. They're actually a really quite nice large size. They're designed to kind of be like little plushies, so that's why they have this kind of like more animated look to them, but a subscriber very nicely sent these pins along to me. We've now reached the point where I only have 1 pin from all of the following shops, so we'll try and move a little bit quicker through this part. But this is a Goofy Movie pin from Little Shop of Pins that I just showed in my pin mail video. It features Max and Goofy in the actual perfect cast. The 2 pin pieces are actually connected together, so Max is actually fishing Goofy. I don't think Little Shop of Pins has any licensed Disney pins, but I do think they have licenses for a few other properties. Then I have another Goofy Movie pin, and this is by Daddy-O Does Disney. This pin is one of my overall favorite fantasy pins. She does a whole series of fantasy pins that are in the style of WDI clusters. Quality of them is so nice. They're so pretty. And I currently have a pre-sale purchase in for the Wally cluster. Then we have some Baby Yoda pins, and this top one here is by Penny Arcades. She is an incredibly in-demand maker right now, so I'm very happy I was able to get this Baby Yoda. Although this pin is very small, it has so much detail on it. Like the ears are made with a translucent enamel to look more realistic. There's all this screen printing on it. Her pre-sales always sell out incredibly quickly. Most of her limited edition pins are more expensive, but it seems like she's doing more Mandalorian designs in the future that I really hope I can get. Then this other Baby Yoda pin down here is by Squadron Goals. This pin is so cute because, you know, there's the whole thing with Baby Yoda and the frogs, but this is also in a similar vein of Stitch holding the frog. I think this design is just absolutely adorable. This next pin is by M&M Pins, and it is such a big pin. For a size scale, this is the Baby Yoda pin that I just showed compared to it. This maker did a whole series, I think it was called Profile Pier, where they kind of did a mixture of Pixar Pier and the WDI profiles. So I got this really neat Eve pin. I also remember it actually wasn't too expensive, and that's pretty awesome for just how big this pin is. I then have 1 pin by Wish Upon a Star Fantasy Pins. I have especially lately heard a lot of mixed things about this maker, but I have this really neat Moana pin here. She's done a whole series in the style of these reveal conceal pins. They're all kind of in a similar style with a little gem. So I think this one with Moana is super pretty. I love this pin from Electric Pin Company so much because it's a Halloween Town pin. Halloween Town has been and will always be my Halloween jam. This is done in kind of like a postcard style. I feel like I definitely need to try and find myself more Halloween Town fantasy pins if they do exist. I then have this nice little simple pin down here from the Park Hop Princess. This is a glittery state of California with a cutout Mickey head around where Anaheim, Los Angeles is located. I think there's also a version with Florida with a Mickey cutout around where Orlando is. We then have this Madame Medusa Rescuers pin by Outta Our Minds. This shop is very much more so a high-end, much more expensive, exclusive fantasy pin maker. And this Medusa really does have pretty beautiful, insane details. The one thing is Brutus and Nero didn't actually come with their pupils filled in. It seemed like none of the pins were made with the pupils, so I kind of had to add that in with a Sharpie. But otherwise, just like the detail and the face, super, super pretty. This was the only pre-sale that I purchased from them. Then I have this pin from Holler Fantasy Pins. Although I did not actually purchase it from the maker, I got it on eBay kind of direct from the manufacturer. But this pin itself here is pretty insane. It is absolutely massive. We'll bring back our little baby Yoda friend for comparison. I love that it has Yzma as a cat on it. We have Yzma pretty much in all of her glory there. We have some more Emperor's New Groove pins, and this pin is by the shop Yumi Made. And this pin was very kindly sent by a subscriber, and it is Stitch as Yzma. This shop does a whole really awesome series of Stitch kind of dressed as different Disney characters. This one is just the coolest. I think the design is absolutely perfect. Then we have this pin by D-Bits shop. And this one is a cute little baby Cusco. There are like almost no pins of baby Cusco, so this was a really neat design to get. We are finally nearing the end here. We have this pin from Fandom Flare, which was actually the very first Disney Fantasy pin I ever got. It's also an awesome pin because it's in the design of the extract of llama. So this is a fantasy pin I've had for quite a long time and still really love. Then I have this other Emperor's New Groove inspired pin from Oh Yeah Apparel. They have switched to like not really doing Disney stuff anymore. And they also didn't produce too many pins. But this pin here is kind of done in the style of a Cusco hair comb. So I think it's really fun and stylistic. Then there is this Yzma pin from Popline Pins. She is Popline Bling, and for a while she did some pins, but I don't think she's done anything active for a while. But there was this whole series of characters eating cotton candy with this super pretty glitter background. So here we have a smirking Yzma, and she's eating some kind of like Cusco-inspired cotton candy. Then for these pins here, I unfortunately don't really know who the maker is. So I have this super huge frozen like stained glass jumbo pin, bringing back Baby Yoda again for scale. This pin is so pretty and huge, but I really have no idea who the maker is. I got it from somebody who was selling off some pins on Instagram. So if you know who the maker is, let me know. I think there's a few other pins that are kind of in this style. Then I have this cute little pin of Yzma as a kitty cat. I remember buying this pin, but unfortunately I can't find or recall what shop it came from. But I love my little Yzma kitties. And then I have this pin of Yzma and Kronk riding in a dune buggy. So, okay, I mean, I kind of know where this is from, as in I bought it kind of directly from the seller. But the seller that has this whole Haunted Mansion series, they have a little Golden Book series, they're actually a counterfeit seller of authentic Disney pins. They also sell some counterfeit fantasy pins. So I have no idea if they did actually decide to start making their own fantasy pins, or if these are legitimate fantasy pins from somewhere else. And then there's just a few pins that we have to end off with, which are my own pins from Desert Mouse Pins Shop. So I a while back had made a few of my own fantasy pins. As I talked about in my Q&A video, once my ear shop really started to pick up, I really had to choose whether I wanted to concentrate on ears or pins, since I just had too much on my plate, and I chose ears. So these are all the pins that I've made so far. I've got my little Mickey barrel cactus, a cute little pin trader trade with me, a Mickey Mouse shaped geode, these papel picado inspired cocoa pins, and then finally a little glittery Churroland pin. I have no current plans for any more pin designs, but that's not to say I won't make any pins in the future. Since grad school and YouTube and my Mouse Ear Etsy shop is kind of enough. So there we go, that is my entire fantasy Disney pin collection broken down by the shops. But out of the shops that I showed today, I'd love if you let me know what your favorite shop is. But thanks for watching!